And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. A hydrologist is a scientist who studies water and its movement around the planet. Hydrologists also study how water affects the surrounding environment and how environmental factors affect the quality and quantity of available water. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1990.
A lot of stability can be maintained by good management of the valley bottom and its side channel systems and stable banks on the main channel.
The lack of large timbers being fed into the system puts essential log jams, which are so necessary for controlling floods and water flow, at risk. Over time, the log jams become weakened, and with no large trees coming down the river to reinforce them, they can blow out. Is there enough mature timber to maintain the critical log jams?
Not in the lower system. The upper system still has most of the valley bottom timber intact, and the stability situation up there is somewhat different from down here because it has the mature timber still left along the banks for the most part.
Why are the log jams so important?
What they do is they help protect the side channel entrances along the main channel from being invaded by high water levels. And consequently, when the high water levels come, they do not enter the side channel systems and erode them out and eventually lead to a blowout into which the main channel can enter.
Last summer, with funds supplied by the Samodin Enhancement Program, a blown-out log jam was rebuilt on a side channel. If the project works, productive fish habitat will be restored. A blowout on a side channel is responsible for problems being experienced at the water intake for Kitimat's cable car subdivision. When the river is high, residents have dirty water full of silt.
It's a major change up at the cable car system, and ultimately it is exactly that reason. It used to have not a complete log jam at the upper end of a side channel that went through a clear cut in the 1960s, but the partial log jam blew out in the last flood in 1988 in the fall, and that side channel is now the main channel. It takes 80% of the flow, and it's changed from one side of the valley to the other side of the valley.
One method of keeping critical log jams in place is to tie them down with cables.
What we do in cabling down log jams is in certain selected strategic places along the river, we try to choose large logs, very large logs, to serve as anchors for logs to build up against, to build up a small log jam. And what we do is we attach cables to the log on the bank and then tie the cables back up into firm, secure timber, or alternately, if it's in a logged area, onto large, secure stumps back of the bank.
And so that would hold back all this small debris that there's lots of all up and down the river.
That would help hold that against the large anchor log and create a stable spot on the bank.
The Department of Fisheries is presently evaluating the success of one such project.
It is one of the options available. I guess you could say it's a softer option as opposed to massive riprapping. We feel that it's appropriate to attempt it at this point, a so-called softer solution, one that would let the river do as much of the work as possible, as opposed to rushing in with heavy equipment and expending a lot of time and energy and effort with negative impacts downstream. We prefer to try to let the river do as much of the work as it can by itself, with a little nudging and helping here and there.
Is the lower Kitimat River in trouble?
In places, there's serious erosion going on. Upstream of First Creek and below Big Wadeen River in particular, and even up to the old Crown-Zellerbeck Bridge crossing.
The Wadeen and so on is also being logged. Is that the reason for the degradation there as well, the fact that it was logged down to the channel bank?
Yes, in both situations, that's been a definite factor in changes along the Wadeen and the Big Wadeen River.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Sediment is a naturally occurring mineral that is broken down in the process of weathering and erosion and is subsequently transported by the action of wind, water, ice, or by force of gravity acting on the particles. Let us return to the archives to discover how this impacts the Kitimat River.
You have two quite unstable tributaries coming into the Kitimat River very close together, and they're both bringing in gravel from the eroding banks, and as is the Kitimat itself at that spot. So you have kind of a triple junction of tributaries in the main channel, all pouring gravel into that one spot.
Since November, Kitimat's main water intake just south of the Heisla Bridge has been in trouble. When the water's high, homeowners in some parts of town have to regularly clean the filters on their washing machines. There have been lots of complaints.
Certainly had a lot initially. I didn't get them all personally, but people were concerned. They weren't aware that we were doing what we could do as soon as we could. We've had the hydrologist in town today, so hopefully we'll have a report shortly from him. There's no immediate solution to it. It isn't a matter of just changing filters or screens. Our water intake itself does the filtration.
The silty water has also caused a great deal of extra work for the municipality and increased wear and tear on its equipment. The river has changed course and damaged the main water intake. It's been impossible to assess the extent of the damage.
Until the river level drops or the velocity goes down and the water clears, we can't have divers in there to look at it, to do accurate soundings. From the soundings we have done, we're sure there's at least 1 to 1.5 meters or so of material is missing on some areas of the intake. That's resulting in reduced filtration through it, and probably in some locations the intake pipe itself has been exposed.
A new gravel bar that's formed just north of the Heisla Bridge is believed to be one of the main reasons the water intake is experiencing problems.
I can attest from a couple of years ago that there's a gravel bar right across the river from here that used to have most of the main flow going across there. And that gravel bar being there is one of the reasons why the intake is now being attacked by the river down below the bridge. What it's doing is causing a deflection of the current underneath the left span of the bridge where it didn't flow before. It used to flow underneath the right span at this spot.
If the force of the river's own current can be used, it may be possible to rechannel it back under the east span of the bridge where the main flow used to go.
Upstream from the bridge, we want to bring some logs that are sitting in the middle of the current at the moment and causing gravel to accumulate around them. We want to bring them over to this side, create a deflection point on this side so that the current will swing back towards the right and help clear out the gravel that's building out over that way.
Personnel from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans are working with municipal officials and the hydrologist to work out a solution that won't have any negative impacts downstream. It's not a good time of year to do work in the river.
We would prefer to see no in-stream work at this time of the year. Our preferred timing window is in the summertime for in-stream work.
The best thing that could happen in the short term is for the high water to recede. But Kitimat is hoping the hydrologist and the Department of Fisheries can come up with a plan to restore the good, cleared water supply that residents are used to. And what about the upper Kitimat River? Skeena Mills started logging the upper valley several years ago. Since 1987, new stream-side protection measures have been in place. But will that be enough to ensure that what happened in the lower Kitimat doesn't take place in the upper reaches of the valley?
Well, yes, we believe the guidelines will go a long way toward preventing a repeat of the same mistakes which were made in the lower Kitimat.
The clear cutting in the lower Kitimat brought prosperity to many, but the watershed paid the price. It will take decades for the replanted trees to reach maturity and secure the riverbanks.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Nowadays, you could not comprehend how a pregnant woman could smoke. However, back in the 1950s and prior to that, pregnant women were encouraged to smoke because it calmed them down. Let us return to the archives to bring you this story about building healthier babies.
Research also indicates a baby's development can be seriously impaired by a mother's lifestyle. Poor eating habits, drug or alcohol use can result in a less intelligent, less active child. So to ensure her baby gets off to a strong start, Angela George has come to the Building Healthier Babies program in Terrace.
Do you have any questions about the poster?
Not really. It's just that I find it so fascinating that it's unreal. Like I never seen any of these posters before until now.
4.6% of babies born in BC are underweight. In the Northwest, the figure is about the same. Building Healthier Babies program coordinator Terry Gordon says education and outreach programs like this one will help decrease those figures. A former nurse, Terry Gordon, says the program's goal is to reach women who, for whatever reason, are slipping through the information network provided by public health.
Basically what we're looking at is, I think even before we're getting into raising babies, we're trying to, the government realizes that there is a need for women to have healthy babies. And I think that would certainly decrease the strain in the community as far as, children being referred to the Child Development Center with handicaps, for example. These are preventable handicaps, and I think there's a definite need there as far as, helping these women with their pregnancy and helping them to understand that they can have a healthy baby and that there's not a lot that they have to do to have a healthy baby. And that's why we're here, to encourage that, to show them that it is possible. And a lot of it doesn't take a lot of work, just some simple lifestyle changes as far as they're concerned.
Angela George already has 2 children, and although she's 26 years old, she has never understood the chemical and physical changes that come with pregnancy. When she arrived at the center, counselor Lynn Goodridge took her under her wing and into her office. Here she shows Angela what's happening inside her womb and how the fetus should be progressing.
Angela, these are our posters that show the development of the baby and the events of your pregnancy, starting with the first week right through to term. And when you come in, as you progress in your pregnancy, you can go to the different week that you're pregnant in. Right now you're in your 12th week, yes? And you can look and you can see the development of the baby, and explains what different developmental things are going on. You can look at the maternal events that you might be experiencing, like some of the effects of maybe you're feeling very tired at that particular stage of the pregnancy.
A counselor like Lynn Goodridge will spend as much time with an expectant mother as necessary. Lynn gives each woman a file full of pamphlets on tips for a more comfortable pregnancy, good eating habits, explanations of hormone changes, and suggestions for dealing with the stress of pregnancy.
Everybody has their own unique problems or concerns Some of the familiar ones are nutritional concerns, what to eat and how much to eat. A big question you hear with everybody is about the weight gain during pregnancy. Initially that can be a bit of a shock that they're putting on weight, and they seem quite concerned with that, especially if it is a first-time pregnancy.
Counselor Lynn Goodridge says many of the women who come to the center have been referred by physicians, high school counselors, or social services. She says many of them can't afford to pay for individual counseling, and if it were not for the free services provided by the center, these women would have no information and no one to talk to about their pregnancy.
We are not really duplicating any existing service. There are other services she may use as well as ours, but I'm not aware of anyone like ours up in the Terrace area. We also refer the client on to other services if we can't meet their needs. Public health is an example, or alcohol and drug counseling and different things like that. But a service where they can come and get free prenatal information that's individualized and specialized right for themselves, and a nutritional plan and guideline. I don't believe there's any service existing like that at this moment.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
An article in a March 1956 edition in a popular women's magazine had advocated a strict diet for expecting mothers for the purpose of them staying thin. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives as a nutritionist shares what the average healthy weight gain should be.
Nutritionist Linda McMinn says an average healthy weight gain during the entire 9 months of pregnancy is generally considered 25 pounds. Angela's weight is fine, so Linda will go over the types of food she's eating and encourage her to follow the Canada or BC food guides.
When I see a client, I usually do what we call a 24-hour food recall. We go through the day before and I ask them what they ate, and using these food models as well to get an idea of portion sizes, I try and estimate what they actually are eating, and then we go from there and decide on what they're going to work on to improve.
Linda McMinn uses the plastic food models to illustrate the size of helping and the kind of food a client should be eating on a daily basis. She gives advice on low-cost foods, how to shop, and how to prepare simple, healthy meals. McMinn says very young mothers often have no idea what they should be eating, let alone how to eat for a baby.
We try to promote fresh fruits and vegetables, but they're expensive, so there are other alternatives which we have, such as canned fruit or juices, that kind of thing.
Another problem with very young expectant mothers, according to McMinn, is their opposition to any kind of weight gain. She says many pregnant teens need to gain weight just to be normally healthy, and then more weight to support the baby. In the end, teenagers are often shocked to find out how many pounds they've packed on.
Well, one example that we see a lot of is a mother who is underweight at conception. So if she's underweight at conception, she needs to eat enough for her baby and also to gain the extra weight that her body needs. Otherwise, the food that she's having will go to her body to make up for the deficit in weight. Proper nutritional care is extremely important part of prenatal care. A mother cannot have a healthy baby unless she is well nourished herself. We used to think that the baby was a perfect parasite and would take all the nutrition it needed from the mother's body, but we know this is now not true. And if there is a shortage of nutrients, the mother's body may compete to the detriment of the baby.
For Angela, finding out that there is a proper way to eat during pregnancy was a surprise, but she's happy to follow the recommended daily food allowances.
Before I didn't watch my diet, and coming here and seeing all these new charts, and it's something I could follow, easy to follow.
The center is open daily and clients are free to stop in and chat. If Angela wants to do that, there's usually a peer counselor available to exchange pregnancy stories. Volunteer peer counselor Sandra Seaton often brings her 11-month-old baby with her when she's at the center. She says her pregnancy was an easy one, and she wanted to help women for whom being pregnant could be a lonely, depressing time.
Yes, I had family and I had friends, and I had my husband.
Yes, I did. I had lots of people. And I was aware that a lot of people didn't have the support system that I had. And that is so important when you're pregnant.
26-year-old Kelly Hilliski recently moved to Terrace with her husband. She was pregnant and began coming to the program because she was lonely and didn't know anyone in town. After her baby was born, she decided to keep coming, only this time as a peer counselor.
Yes. With my first child, I lived in a town where I didn't really know anyone, and there wasn't any type of a support group or anything for that, and I found my first pregnancy very difficult. I didn't have a lot of people to talk to. I didn't have family with me. Coming to this program, there was always someone there willing. I mean, all you talked about was your pregnancy, and when a woman's pregnant, that's mostly what you think about and feel, because there's so much happening to your body and your emotions. And so I could come and just spend a whole hour just talking about what I had felt and what I'd thought about through the week, and it really made being pregnant a lot easier to go through. I really believe in the program. It works, and I think that all pregnant women can benefit from it. I tell everybody that I know that I volunteer here, and that, you know, if they know someone pregnant, they should come. Even for women that don't have any problems in their pregnancy, they could just come to just feel they could talk about their pregnancy with someone and not feel that they talk about it too much or something. And they can, it really helps not to smoke, and it really helps you to think about nutrition. It makes the reality of your baby come out. You know, a lot of women that are pregnant, and they don't really associate that with actually going to have a child in the end of this. And you come here and there's pictures, and there's girls that come and have babies with them, and it's real. And you see, you know, this little miracle is really going to happen to you.
Nutritional advice and emotional support are two major components of the Building Healthier Babies program. Another is lifestyle changes. Expectant mothers are encouraged to get a full night's sleep and to limit drinking, smoking, and drug use. Coordinator Terry Gordon says most women will follow the recommendations once they realize the detrimental effect bad habits could have on the developing fetus.
Primarily, our program is focusing on low birth weight, because that's certainly something that statistically has shown a good birth weight baby has less health problems. And so we're really aiming for a nice high birth weight baby. And as well as fetal alcohol syndrome, that's certainly one thing that we are concerned about, is decreasing alcohol consumption with the hope of abstinence, as well as decreasing cigarette smoking, because that certainly can also affect a child's birth weight and the outcome of the pregnancy.
After 4 previous miscarriages, Tina Fowler came to the program when she was pregnant with Levi. She says the friendship and faith of the center staff gave her the courage to change her lifestyle. That friendship continues now, even after the birth of her first baby.
Like, I stopped drinking and smoking when I first found out I was pregnant, and they were really encouraging. Like, I'd start craving the cigarette and that, and I think of the program, and I didn't want to let them down.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.